Welcome to the Authority File, the academic library podcast from Choice. Choice is a publishing division of the ACRL and the publisher of Choice Reviews and CC Advisor. This episode is brought to you by Credo. I'm Bill Mickey, the host of the podcast and the editorial director at Choice, and for this 4-episode series, my guests and I will be discussing how orientation and engagement factor into the first-year experience. These discussions are part of a longer series on the first-year experience that Credo is presenting with Choice. Last month, we looked at some of the other components that make a successful first-year experience program, namely collaboration and information literacy. But for the next couple episodes, I'll be joined by Ray Pun, a doctoral student in educational leadership at California State University, Fresno, Andrew Carlos, STEM and Web Services librarian at Cal State East Bay, and Danielle Rapu, Library Systems and Assessment Librarian at Pasadena City College. In this third episode of our series, our guests offer insights and takeaways from their day-to-day development of first-year experience programming, particularly in serving diverse student bodies. Okay, so Ray, you've had the opportunity to work with a bunch of really interesting, insightful, and gifted folks on the Credo FYE guide. And I'm wondering, in talking with all of these folks, if you've had to boil it down to 2 or 3 key takeaways, I'm wondering what you might think those would be.
Yeah, so the FYE guide is open access, so anyone can download it. It's really great information covering a variety of topics from assessment, instruction, orientation, collaboration. And the one I'm particularly really interested in and sharing with all of you is the chapter 3, or actually chapter 2, on collaboration. And it looks at specifically from Dickinson College, Chris Bombero, who is the Associate Director of Research and Instruction. She shares this opportunity on how to really build relationships to introduce FYE information literacy on campus. So I think it's important to think about your stakeholders, so your faculty, your student affairs folks, and have them understand that there are a variety of assignments that they can consider in embedding information literacy in their assignments. So also working with administrators to optimize this instruction, because it takes a village to really get this going, and utilizing the library space to hold events and opportunities, right, to build these collaborations. So what Chris emphasizes is really teaching the teacher. So because we all know this, a lot of FYE librarians tend to be the go-to person, and they get overwhelmed at times because there's a lot of students, a lot of need, a lot of demand. But if you work closely with the faculty, such as including the Writing Center and other special programs, you can actually build a scaffolding program to sustain and scale it. So teaching the teachers is one way that Chris mentions, in a way to introduce the pedagogy that the library can support by helping the faculty understand these different tools and research materials out there. And I know it seems kind of like intuitive, you would think, but a lot of times we forget, because we just sort of assume the faculty would know. Actually, they probably only have experiences, if they're new faculty, usually teaching the first-year programs, first-year classes, they may be only exposed and be familiar with their own library experiences wherever they got their graduate degrees or training.
Right. Yeah, well said. That's excellent. And then what about you, Danielle and Andrew? Thinking about first-year experience, I mean, what takeaways would you offer from your own programs and experience? What are some of the characteristics of FYE programming that are unique to your institution's environment and student population versus those that are perhaps more universal or common to all institutions? And Danielle, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I think that recognizing, even when you have maybe a limited budget, that there are things that you can do that don't require a big budget, such as taking the time to meet with their regular FYE instructor and talking to them about reiterating some of the things that they get from the library sessions, such as, when they struggle with their research or they need help with it, that they should come to the library, and to really echo the things that we teach, because oftentimes we do get to see them, but we don't always get to connect with them at their point of need, and very often they are in the classroom with their FYE instructor throughout the semester, and that will be their more familiar point of contact who can support the student by letting them know what's available in the library. And aside from meeting with faculty and telling them to reiterate some of the things that are said in the instruction sessions, is libraries can host the work of the FYE students. So we have hosted the posters that our students complete and display them in the library for view throughout the semester as a way for the students to see what previous students had done. So throughout the semester, while the student is in the program, they are able to come to the library and see examples of these posters. And it's a good way to illustrate what the culminating goal is for the course with the group collaboration poster. And by hosting it in the library and the instructors directing their students to come to the library to see the examples, I think it's a great way to encourage the students to really demonstrate the ability to be creative with their research, because the posters oftentimes take an artistic creative element and students really get a chance to see it illustrated in front of them when it's on display.
Okay. And Andrew, how about you?
So as Danielle and Ray pointed out, working with the faculty in the first year experience is actually really beneficial. I had the opportunity a few years ago to work closely with the folks who were teaching the general studies, the FYE class, and it's actually worked out really well for me because it was the engineering students who I also liaised with, so I got to see them in their first year, and then later on when they were taking their disciplinary classes, I got to see them again and I got to build a really good relationship with them. Like, they remembered me from that one session that I did for their general studies class, so they already felt comfortable to ask me questions, which was really nice. Our institution, our FYE program is very much controlled by our general education department. So it's really hard for us to develop programming to reach out to them, mainly because they're like block enrolled in things and they are so overloaded with all the activities that they have to do that it's like, what's another thing for them to have to worry about? So it'll be kind of nice once we do move to semesters and we no longer have our first year class to really worry about, because I think it's giving us an opportunity to figure out ways to engage with students that isn't related to a class. So we could do, we could be present at their orientations, we could be present in their classes, we could support them through presentations and poster sessions and stuff that they do. And we've actually started this new thing where our first year students, when they come to the library, they come there to get their student AV photos taken. So usually there's a giant line of 100 or so students just sitting there milling about, kind of lost, not sure what's going on. So we've actually had our librarians showing up, we have snacks, we have games, we have things for them to do to really engage with the library. And our goal is really just for them to see that librarians are there to help support them and to be a resource for them, and really just put a friendly face to the library. So that maybe when they come back in, when they have a research question, they'll see someone that they recognize in line and they're going to be more willing to ask for help.
Okay.
I just wanted to add something, what Andrew had mentioned about relationships with faculty. I think one of the burning challenge that I've noticed from my own experience as well is that every semester you have these new faculty who happen to be, whether they're graduate assistants or visiting professors or adjuncts or lecturers, and they teach the FYE program and the classes, first year writing, the communication studies, etc. And they change every semester. It's not consistent. So you really have to keep building relationships over and over in that sense of working with new folks coming in each year. And it could be very challenging, but it could also be very refreshing. You can work with new folks, they might have ideas, but at some point, it really is something to think about. How do you sustain it consistently with faculty who are not necessarily tenured professors, but are rather in temporary roles supporting FYE.
Okay.
Yeah, and also if they're adjunct faculty, they're not always available on campus. So sometimes they're driving around to multiple campuses, so they don't always have time to sit down and talk to us.
Is there anything you can point to, Andrew, that works in those situations, particularly with the adjunct faculty?
So our campus tried to do the thing where they would actually give us a little bit of a stipend if we were all to get together and just really like figure out a way to. I think we have 3 or 4 classes as a cluster that the students take, and they actually wanted to stipend us and like give us opportunities over the summer to develop a cohesive curriculum that covers all 4 of our classes. It's been very difficult because our faculty are all over the place. They're not always present. And really, like the either the graduate students or the adjunct faculty who teach first-year experience are so overloaded because they have to piece together work. But even though they really want to be collaborative, so it's we're still trying to figure out how to make that happen. And I think the library is a good place for that because a lot of them view the library in a really like positive light. So they're willing to collaborate with us. We just need to figure out how to not make it be more of a burden for them to figure out that sort of curriculum.
Are your first-year students great researchers? Let's be honest, the answer is probably no. Websites like Google and Wikipedia have spoiled users with convenience while flooding the information landscape with sources ranging from shoddy to outright duplicitous. Credo Online Reference Service can help. Its user-friendly interface gives students the convenience they expect, paired with the authoritative content librarians demand. Features like topic pages, the mind map, and real-time reference make it ideal for demoing the research process during instruction. Visit corp.credoreference.com for more details and to download the interactive Credo FYE guide, Practices for Enhancing Instruction, which features prominent librarians offering step-by-step activity plans and best practices. One of the things we've talked about with you before, Ray, I think in a previous guest spot on this podcast, is the way individual students bring a particular set of constraints and opportunities to the library with them. I remember you talking about Hmong students at Fresno and the specific cultural background that informs how they think about the library. As someone who may have limited time with individual students, how can you incorporate that sort of thinking into even limited duration interactions, or should you even? Should librarians go through the day constantly trying to put themselves in someone else's shoes? But at the end of the day, I wonder if sort of that exercise in empathy is essential to this whole process.
Oh yeah, I certainly think that it's important for everyone to develop a sense of empathy, especially if you're serving students with all different backgrounds, because we all need to recognize that they all have different needs. And I think it's something that it requires a level of obviously patience, but also understanding and curiosity of finding creative solutions to address these concerns that students may have. So I'll give you like another example. I was the liaison to our Dream Success Center, which is for supporting undocumented students on campus, and it's a special program under Student Affairs. And I work closely with the coordinator. We've had several meetings together, and we've talked about workshops. I've created a research guide for them, including scholarships and so forth. But I've also met with some of the students who are undocumented, and this is obviously a really, really difficult time for everyone, particularly if you have that status. And I think that makes me more aware of what are their challenges. So one of the things I learned from them is that they've never used the library before. This is their first library. And then I asked them if they've ever been to a public library. They said, oh no, I don't think I can use it because I'm not, I don't have the status, And I said, no, you can use a public library. And did you know there's one that's closer to you than the one here on campus where you have to fight for parking and, find a seat and so forth. I mean, it's bigger, but, it's still challenging. And so they didn't know. And one of the things I did was bringing in the public library folks to help register public library cards, specifically for those students who are being supported by the Dream Success Center. And this was one idea to get the students to feel comfortable, a sense of comfort in the community that they're in, aside from just the campus, and knowing that we have all these resources, and aside from scholarships, that we have these connections. So I think it's challenging, right, to really think about empathy and understanding the different perspectives. But a lot of times as instruction librarians, we like to teach students to think critically and think about these different perspectives and how do they make these arguments and see different perspectives in their papers. But I think for like an exercise like this, it's something that requires a lot of collaboration and really thinking thoughtfully what would support your colleagues who are really directly involved with student services, like the Dream Success Center.
Right. Yeah. No, that's an excellent example, Ray. I mean, imagine on one side you're sort of having to build a fairly homogeneous kind of programming experience in order to attract as many of the students you can, but at the same time you've got this sort of inherent dynamic where you're also having to accommodate or be empathetic toward a variety of backgrounds that students are coming into the school with, and sort of building that into the programming as well. And Danielle, I'm wondering if you might have any other thoughts on this yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo the similar sentiments on the topic. I feel like even though we are different institutions, a lot of the same things apply to us. We have the same challenges, and we definitely use the same tools and use the same strategies to overcome them.
Okay. And Andrew?
So I think it's really important for us to really develop our empathy towards other students. Like, I know as a first-gen student myself, like my experience feels completely different from other first-gen students' experiences. So I've been first trying to like connect with other students and just see like what their experiences are like, and just kind of see like where I can fit in supporting their like career paths right now. So right. It's been a lot of work for me to like start developing empathy, and it's been really cool, to be honest, too, because I've developed really good relationships with the students.
That was Ray Pun, Andrew Carlos, and Danielle Rapu. This concludes the third of our four-part series on how orientation and engagement factor into the first-year experience. This episode was brought to you by Credo. Be sure to join us next week for our final episode of this series when we talk about library anxiety, where it comes from and how our guests specifically help their students overcome it, and how librarians can attract members of the library community in addition to undergrad students.
Yeah, so one of the things that we run a lot are gaming events. Yeah. We've actually seen that it's expanded a little bit. It's not just students who are showing up. We've actually had faculty and some faculty involve their children to our events. We've also had some staff show up. So it's been really nice because it's given us the opportunity to show that the library is not just a place for them to get research help, but it's also a place for them to start building connections and community with each other.
Find all of the episodes of The Authority File on your favorite podcast app or on our website, choice360.org. Just click on the librarianship dropdown. On choice360.org, you'll also find information on Choice's entire product platform, including Choice Reviews, CC Advisor, Choice webinars, resources for college libraries, or white papers, and a whole lot more. A great way to keep up with the Authority File is to join the Choice Authority File Facebook group, which you can access via the Choice Reviews Facebook page. As a member of the group, you can give us feedback, suggest podcast participants, chat with other listeners, and submit new topic ideas. That's all for this week. Thanks for joining us.